Welcome, everybody. Today is going to be a slightly different session because today I'm going to pay a tribute to my mentor, Bob Proctor, who drastically changed my life. I feel like if I hadn't come across him, I wouldn't be doing what it is that I'm doing today. For those who know me, I had been in the corporate world for over 15 years, and everyone thought that, I was so happy, I was flourishing, and I was doing so well, and I was fulfilled with whatever it is that I was doing. But I'd like you to know that at the back of my mind, I always had this nagging voice that told me that I'm meant to do more, I'm meant to be more and have more. But we are always a victim of our circumstances, right? So it becomes very tricky for us to just get out of the norms and go for what it is that we want so easily. We always think of the how. And this is what I'm going to talk about today, how I broke out of the how I attracted my current practice without actually having the money, and that is where a miracle happened in my life. Things just started happening for me, and I never thought they would ever happen. It's like everything seems so impossible at some point, right? I'm sure a lot of you are in that space where at the moment you're thinking that, I want to do this, but how do I do it? How do I break out of my current cycle? Or how do I do better in whatever it is that I'm doing? So this session is absolutely for you if you are that person. When I started doing what it is that I am currently doing, that is when I truly came alive. And what I'd like you to know today is that this is what life is about. Life is meant to be lived. You're meant to be truly alive. You're not supposed to be just working, your ass off and just to pay bills. That's not how life is meant to be. Life is meant to be for a bigger purpose. Think about it. What it is that you would really love to do. What would get you out of bed every day? What it is that you would really drive you. So that is the lines along that you need to start thinking. All right. And today I'm going to share some material that I used that helped me drive my transformation. All right. Now, when I talked about being truly alive, what does it really mean? It was my mentor's Bob Proctor's birthday on the 5th of July. And coincidentally, my birthday was on Sunday, 2nd of July. So what I'd like to talk about is, what does it really mean to be born? We all celebrate, when babies are born, we all celebrate their birthdays. We celebrate our birthdays throughout our lives every year. But the question is, what does it really mean to be born? And that's exactly what I want to talk to you about today. So I came from a background, when I was younger, my parents were quite well off and they were doing quite well. But it reached a point when I turned around the age of 8, my dad lost his business and he couldn't revive it. Now, both my parents, had to get jobs and they weren't qualified. They didn't have degrees. So we sort of had to live quite a compromised life. They did their best and they did everything they could to bring us up and to support us. But we weren't living the ideal life, right? It was a struggle. It was hard. So we became a victim of our circumstances, right? And what happened, when financially things are not going too well, even at home, it's like I was being told things like, don't ever open your own business because it's too risky. Always make sure you just get a job because there's more security in a job. The income is absolutely guaranteed. These are the kind of things I was told. And because of such circumstances at home, I never learned how to make decisions. Decisions were always made from the current circumstances, and they were always imposed on us. We were always told, I was always told that this is what you should do. This is what you are good at. So when I reached the time of going to university, I was only given an option, to study locally. I'm grateful that I studied, but my ideal self would have loved to go abroad and study further with my friends, but I couldn't do that, right? So look at the things, that happened to us in our life. When I look back, I never thought that I would be running the practice I'm currently running. So it's essentially a dream come true because this is my purpose. This is what fulfills me on a day-to-day basis, to help people like you live a better life, to do what it is that you want. When I was younger, I lacked confidence. I was not a confident person at all. Like I remember in primary school, I didn't even have the confidence to stand up and answer a question when a teacher asked a question. Because I remember at that time we'd put our hand up and then we'd stand up and answer the question. Just the idea of standing up in front of the whole class would really, really scare the shit out of me. I'd be like, how am I going to do this? And I saw all my friends doing it. I couldn't even make friends. I had very few friends. So as I grew up, that continued. The lack of confidence continued. And, it went into a situation where my friends would take part in debates. They would speak in front of people, and I couldn't do any of those activities. I always sat on the sidelines and I admired them. I felt like I wish I could speak like them. I wish one day I can be what they are. I wish I can be like them. It was all wishing and hoping. And none of that came into reality until very recently. So I'm sure a lot of you who are hearing me out today are undergoing similar situations, have been in these situations in their past, and are still wondering, how do I make that transition? How do I make that change? So what I'd like you to know, ladies and gentlemen, today is that whatever it is that you desire, whatever it is that you want, it would not have been there in the first place if you are not meant to have it. That's number one. Number two, the truth is, what I learned from my mentor, Bob Proctor, the very profound thing that he taught me is that you can be and do anything that you want. Nothing will absolutely stop you, so long as you use the power of your mind to get what it is that you want. And that's the journey that I'm going to talk about today. How did I use the power of my mind to attract my current practice? My current practice costs thousands of dollars. A lot of you have spoken to me. I've spoken to a lot of you, and you know exactly how much it costs. And guess what? Because I had been in and out of jobs, in my corporate career, I never reached the level I wanted. I kept getting stuck. I kept hitting a ceiling, right? And for that reason, I never had the funds to finance my current practice. But guess what? I could still do it without having the money. So for those of you who think that you have to have the money to do something, please, I'd like you to start shifting the way you think about those things. Start shifting the way you think about achieving and acquiring things. You don't always have to have the money, because the universal law simply works on your vibration. It simply responds to your vibration. All right. So, it's very simple. I remember, as I mentioned, I was always told that I can't open my own business, so I couldn't make my own decisions, right? And I had a lot of fear around the aspects of money, because I was always told that money is hard to earn. You have to work long hours to earn money. It's not easy to earn money and things like that. How many of you are familiar with this? Really think about it, right? So because of all these aspects, I went into the working world, into the corporate world, with my fear, with my lack of decision making. Another thing that I really suffered with was lack of trust. I didn't trust people to help me do my work. When you are a leader in a corporate team, you have to delegate, you have to let go. But this was one of the challenges that I faced. So with all these challenges, I couldn't go very far with my corporate career, right? I hit a ceiling, I hit a limit. I couldn't go further, go beyond a certain level, right? When you go into the corporate world with your personal fears, what happens? You can't express your creative self. Most of you think that creativity is just meant for certain professions like music, art, graphic designers, painters, artists, but absolutely not. Your spirit is creative innately. Everybody is a spiritual being. You are a spiritual being. You have so much potential. There's so much that you can do, but you have no idea, and you have no idea how to go about it. And that's where most of you are challenged, right? I also got an MBA in between my corporate career, but guess what? It didn't even help me as much as I wanted it to, right? So what happened was that I was getting frustrated, because of all these challenges, and I didn't understand why this was happening to me. Now, what happens? You get frustrated because you're not being authentic to yourself. So for those of you who are feeling frustrated with whatever it is that you're engaged in currently, whatever professional, any part of your personal life where you're feeling frustrated, really sit down with yourself and ask yourself what it is that you would really be doing if you had all the money and the time in the world. Whatever answer you get when you ask yourself that question, and you feel good and happy about it, you feel excited about it, that's exactly what you should be doing. But this is an exercise that should be done in a lot of silence. You should not have too many distractions around you, because the right answers never come when you're distracted, when your mind is too busy. So you need to completely silence yourself and ask yourself this question. What would you really be doing? If you had all the time and money in the world, what would really fulfill you? What is your purpose? That's the question. So what happened, when I was in the corporate world and I kept getting frustrated, I kept hitting ceilings. I kept hitting the limits, right? I couldn't go beyond a certain level. It reached a point where, I began really questioning myself, that what do I really want to do? So this was back in 2014. I remember that I was on a sabbatical at some point, and, this thought started coming to me where I started discovering that what I really want to do is to help people live a better life. But at that point, I couldn't quite point a finger at exactly what I'd like to do, because I knew that there were a lot of coaches around, and I didn't want to get into any ordinary sort of coaching. I wanted to do something that would be extremely value adding and something that would be drastically transformational for anyone who would come in contact with me. That was my intention. But years went by. I still kept working. I needed a job to get the money. So I kept working in the corporate world until came the year 2021. I still remember in March 2021, I started asking myself, that how do I go about this? I need to do more. I need to be more. I need to have more. And all of us want that. And that is the calling of your spirit. Your spirit is meant for expansion and fuller expression. So when you want more, to do more, be more, and have more, don't silence that voice, because that is the voice of your spirit. It speaks to you through your desire. And it is your duty to fulfill that desire, to do more, be more, and have more, so that you can expand and fully express yourself. And I set out on this journey, on a mental journey. I don't mean a physical journey. I was still here where I live. I didn't go anywhere physically. But what I did was, I went on a mental journey where I went to search for answers, what it is that I really want to do. How do I go about this? Now, how does this work? When you think about something, it sets you on a specific vibration, right? You get onto that frequency, meaning your thoughts start matching that idea. And coincidentally, I came across Bob Proctor's Facebook groups. So Bob Proctor's team, the Proctor Gallagher Institute, used to have all these 5-day Facebook live sessions. And I just started attending them. So this was in July 2021. So you can look at the gap. My mind started working in March, but the answer came in July. Like I came across Bob Proctor's information in July. Now, interestingly, I had read The Secret in 2013 or 2014, but I never took it to heart. I never took it that seriously. Everybody knows about the law of attraction. You've all probably read The Secret. You watched the movie as well. But why is it that, it doesn't really work? And those are the things I learned with my mentor, Bob Proctor. I went in depth with this material and magic started happening in my life. So I joined his Facebook group live sessions starting July 2021. And I still recall that day. I was sitting behind my laptop on my desk in my apartment. And when he started speaking, I knew this was the thing, because it really resonated with me. It's something that directly spoke to my heart. And I remember how Bob Proctor used to speak. He was very assertive. He was very clear to the point. He would not dilly-dally and be nice to anybody, because, if you want to grow and you want to do something different and get different results in your life, you've got to be honest with yourself. And that's what I loved about Bob Proctor. He was so straightforward. He would tell you straight on your face that you need to stop kidding around with your life. And this is what I'd also like to tell all of you today. Stop kidding around with your life. You get one life. Life is short. You don't want to waste it doing what it is that you're not happy about. Why live an unhappy life day in, day out? Is it really worth it? Really ask yourself that question. So I started attending those sessions, and I remember the 4th day, he would talk about decision making, and that is a lesson, ladies and gentlemen, that had the biggest impact in my life. He then talked about the fact that somebody could become a Proctor Gallagher consultant under his institution and teach the same material that he teaches to people around the world. And I knew instantly that this is exactly what I wanted to do. I got my answer straight away because it resonated with me. It spoke directly to my heart because I saw the value in the information and I saw how transformational that material was, So I made an immediate decision that I am a Proctor Gallagher Institute consultant. Now, how do most of us make decisions? Most of us make decisions based on our current circumstances, right? What would you ask yourself? That, oh, but I don't have the money, I don't have the time for the training. How do I invest in this? How is it going to happen? And those are the kind of questions you ask yourself. But guess what? I didn't ask myself anything. I knew that I didn't have the money at that time because the investment ran into thousands of dollars. But guess what? I still made a decision and I said, I am a Proctor Gallagher consultant. And I remember when I was seated behind my laptop that day, I had chills running down my body. I had goosebumps all over because I knew that was the right decision. When you make the right decision, your intuition speaks to you and tells you that this is what it is, right? So when your intuition tells you to do something, that's the right decision. Your logic is always controlled by your conditioning, your paradigm. So don't ever go with logic when it comes to decision making. And that is what I did. I defied all logic and I said, I am a Proctor Gallagher Institute consultant. I am this. I have become it already. And guess what? I didn't discuss this with anybody. I didn't tell any of my family members. So what did I do next? Because as I mentioned, I didn't have the money to become a Proctor Gallagher consultant. Now, once I had made my decision that I'm already a Proctor Gallagher consultant, the next thing that I used from the information that Bob taught was stop worrying what other people do or say. And that is what helped me implement his information. Because what are most of us afraid of? We are so afraid of what other people will say, right? So whenever you're trying to get different results in your life, you have to do different things in your life. And this means on a day-to-day basis, you have to change your habits. So I just decided to change my habits and start doing things differently. And the first thing I learned from Bob was that I shouldn't ever worry about what anybody says or anybody thinks about the changes that I'm making in my life. And what is the first worry? It's your family and friends, the people who you're closest to, right? You're always worried that, oh, they're looking at me, they're observing me, they're going to see me change, right? But I decided to discard all of that and start working on myself, all right? Now, what did I try and do immediately? The first thing that you do when you have to make a financial investment in anything that you want is to look for the money, right? So I tried the same thing. I said, let me try a few strategies, right? Let me try and get a grant from the community. If they can, as part of tertiary education, if they can sponsor my training for Proctor Gallagher consultant. I even thought of taking a loan from a few banks. I called a friend of mine who works in a bank and I asked him, what's the interest rate like? How much should I be paying per month, etc., right? I even thought of borrowing from friends and family. I was like, who is well-to-do and who can lend me some money? So these are the logical things that we think of, whenever we try to, let's say, make an investment or do something different. Even if you want to buy a house, you want to travel, you want to buy a car, and let's say you don't have the money, these are some of the things you might try to do, right? Or say that, okay, I'll invest and get something more in return, right? But guess what? None of those worked. None of those strategies worked for me. For some reason, none of them just worked. Now, where was the problem? I was trying to reach a goal. I was trying to implement strategies, yet my mindset was down here. And there was a gap between the level at where my mindset was and where my goal was seated. And that's exactly where the problem was. My mindset had not aligned with the strategies that I was trying to use. And ladies and gentlemen, whatever it is that you're trying to do in your life at the moment, and wherever you're struggling, this is exactly where the misalignment is, because your mindset has a 95% contribution to everything that happens in your life. The strategies only have a 5% contribution. So you need to bring your mindset to level it up with the strategies that you are trying to use so that you can get the results that you want. Otherwise, you'll always be struggling. So what happened next? My journey became very much fun, very transformational, and very effortless. And this is how you get effortless results. Now, number one, the first thing that I started doing, the number one thing I remember very, very clearly was the first lesson that Bob would teach about was always goal setting. He always taught us that you should set a goal based on what you want and not what you think you can get or what you already know how to get. So I knew that I wanted to become a PGI consultant, and I had no idea how I was going to get it. Yet I knew from the bottom of my heart that this is exactly what I want. And guess what? I wrote it down on my goal card, and I started engaging with it on a daily basis. When I say engaging with my goal card, it means reading it out aloud to myself, engaging with the idea emotionally for most part of the day. So that was the first thing that I started doing. So, you can get hold of a card, you can this is my current goal card, all right? So you can get hold of a card and write down, when you write down what it is that you want, you just say, I'm so happy and grateful now that I have XYZ, write it in present tense and give it a date. And when you keep reading it, engaging with it on a daily basis and get emotionally involved with that idea, it has no option but to come into your reality. And that's exactly what happened to me. Well, but that wasn't the only thing. That was one of the things that I was doing, all right? The next thing that really, really was transformational for me personally, now everybody's journey is different, right? Was something known as the attitude audio. So there's a very famous audio on YouTube that Bob Proctor has, and he has made it based on Earl Nightingale's teaching on the subject of attitude. What I'd like you to understand is that attitude is the most misunderstood word in the English dictionary. Having a mental positive attitude does not mean that you have a good attitude. Attitude is a very deep study. So what I did, this is a YouTube video, it's a free video that's actually available online. So what I'm going to be doing, I'll be posting the link, after this session, I'll be posting the link. I'll send it out to whoever is on Zoom on email. And for those who are on Facebook, I'll post it on the comment section so you can have a look at this audio. It's a 36-minute audio, but it is simply transformational. It's absolutely and phenomenally transformational. I started listening to this audio committedly every single day for at least once a day. And I started transforming. I started experiencing changes in my attitude, in the way I was thinking within about 14 days. And my family would wonder, what's going on with her? Why is she so different? How come she seems so vibrant, so happy, so positive? That audio had a drastic difference for me in my life. All right. Now, what I decided to do, I decided to go deeper, and I started changing my perceptions. I started believing that it's possible to achieve what it is that you really want. When I started engaging with Bob Proctor's material, my belief started strengthening. So what Bob always told us was this, that if you don't believe in yourself, borrow my belief that I believe in you. And that's exactly what I'd like you to know today. I'd like to tell all of you today that for those who are listening to this, and if you don't believe in yourself, I'd like you to know that I believe in you. You can do whatever it is that you want. Borrow my belief in you, and ultimately you start believing in yourself. So Bob really helped me strengthen my belief in myself. And that was so powerful and transformational for me. Then in October 2021, I joined something called the Proctor Challenge, where Bob's team challenged all of us, whoever was participating, to maintain a gratitude journal for a month, for the entire month of October. Because October happened to be that month, in 1961, when Bob came across the book Think and Grow Rich, and that completely turned his life around, all right? So I started maintaining a gratitude journal, and guess what? I never stopped. So gratitude is just not being thankful for what it is that you have. It's also being thankful for what it is that you want. So even something that has not arrived in your life yet, be thankful for it in the present tense, because the universal law works in a way that the universe simply responds to your vibrations directly. So when you say thank you for something that you want, but you say thank you for it in the present tense, like you already have it, the universe responds to that and it comes to you. So I was thanking the universe daily for my consulting practice, for my clients. So imagine, I had not even started the practice. I had not even started getting any clients because I had not even gotten the certification or anything, right? But because I was already thanking the universe for it, it was putting me in the right vibration, and the universe eventually responded, all right? Another thing that I learned was to discipline my mind and only direct it towards my goal rather than anything else. Now, this is one of the most difficult things to do, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to discourage you, right? Because it is very doable. If I could do it, you can. So it's not impossible. But you have to be a very committed and disciplined person to be able to direct your mind always towards the goal. What does that mean? That means disconnecting everything else from your five senses. So whatever you're seeing around you, whatever anybody is saying, whatever you're hearing, whatever you're touching and tasting, you must ignore it if it's not aligned with your goals. All right. You have to just always be aligned emotionally with your goal, and it comes faster to you. And I was very, very persistent in my daily practices. Persistence is one of the key factors to success. Of course, there were days when I didn't feel like doing it or I didn't have the time, but I made sure that I found the time and I did what I had to do. I was very, very, very persistent. And this included weekends. No breaks, no excuses. You have to do it. So what did I do? I invested time and money in myself to work towards what I wanted. I had to invest in the material. If I wanted to get returns, if I wanted to achieve my goal, I had to make a minimum investment in order to get the returns I wanted, because I wanted a structured way to get the results that I wanted. Why do things in a haywire manner? Why get lost? Why get confused when there is a structured system that can help you achieve what it is that you want? So that's exactly what I did. I invested time and money in myself to work towards what I wanted. So the question that you need to ask yourself is, how badly do you want it? That's always the question, because you'll do anything to get if you really, really want it. If you're not too sure about it, then you'll not be committed. You'll be like, it's okay, one day I'll do it, one day I won't, and you'll not get the results you want, right? So as you think about what it is that you really want to do in your life, one thing I'd like you to think about is, if you keep doing what you are doing right now at the moment, do you think you'll get different results? Really think about it, right? If you want to get different results, you have to do something different in your life. And that's where you have to be very, very committed. You can't be interested, you can't be dilly-dallying. You have to be absolutely committed to what it is that you really want. And that's why you really have to want it. That is always the prerequisite, your desire. So what happened next, So my journey started in July 2021. So through August, September, October, through December, through January, I kept continuing my practices, the direction that I was given, I kept using the techniques that I was given in order to discipline my mind towards knowing that I already was a Proctor Gallagher consultant. I was already a success enabler. And then, one of my dreams was to really meet Bob Proctor in person. But guess what? In February of 2022, on February 3rd, we lost him. And that was the biggest tragedy for all his followers, because he has impacted millions of lives around the globe. That was one of the biggest losses, the world ever experienced, in my perspective, because he personally transformed my life with the material. When I started engaging his material, everything started changing around me. Things for my family started changing, everything started transforming. It was phenomenal. So that was a very, very, very sad period. I was extremely saddened by that loss, because it was my dream that I wanted to meet him in person. But well, I guess the universe had better plans, because guess what happened? I still continued my practices. In fact, that made me even more persistent and more determined to go for what it is that I wanted. It made me more excited that now, because he is gone, I want to do this even at a bigger scale, because I live here in Africa and I want to target the entire continent with this material. I want to transform lives across the entire continent. That got me so excited, So I continued doing my practices. And then on February 27th, I still remember that date, there was his memorial on YouTube online. His team had organized an online memorial, to pay a tribute to him. And I decided to log on. It was 10 p.m. for my local time, but I was so committed that I decided to log on. I didn't decide to watch the replay like what maybe most people would do. And I logged on, and everybody was speaking. And then came on Sandy Gallagher. Sandy Gallagher is a partner at Proctor Gallagher, and now she's one of the main leaders in the business because we lost Bob Proctor. So Sandy Gallagher happened to mention that Cynthia Kersey, a very, very wonderful woman who owns the Unstoppable Foundation, runs major projects nearby where I live. So the areas that she runs projects, where I live are in Kilifi and in the Masai Mara. And I was totally blown away. I was like, oh my God, the Proctor Gallagher Institute, Bob Proctor's institution is actually doing something here where I live. I really, really want to be involved, and I got this very, very strong, inspiring, intuitive thought that I need to get hold of, this lady called Cynthia Kersey, and the thoughts that started running in my mind were, but who are you? Is she even going to talk to you? Why would she speak to you, right? Because, I was like, I'm a nobody, why would Cynthia Kersey speak to me? Because she's a renowned lady, she's doing so many things. She owns such a big foundation. They run their projects in millions of dollars. So it's a very profound foundation, right? But what I realized is that my paradigm was talking to me. My inner voice was trying to discourage me. So what I decided to do was I decided to overcome that voice, and I made a decision that just the next day I'm going to reach out to her on LinkedIn. So I went the next day. So this was on a Sunday night. So on the next Monday morning, I went on LinkedIn, I searched for her, and I dropped a message. And guess what? When I was typing that message out, I was sweating because my fear had overtaken me. Remember, your paradigm takes over right at the point where your growth is coming. But if you don't realize it, and if you step back, you'll be going back to your comfort zone and you'll never proceed to the next step. So I overcame that fear and I dropped that message. I wrote her a very long message explaining to her how Bob Proctor had impacted me and my family. And, at the back of my mind, I was thinking to myself, but she'll not even get back to me. She's such a busy lady. She's such a senior woman, right? Why would she write back to me? But guess what? The same evening, when it was her morning, she replied to me and she said that she would love to get on a call with me. And lo and behold, I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, this is the turning point of my life, because I can get involved in work that is related to the Proctor Gallagher Institute. And I was like over the moon, I couldn't even explain how I was feeling. And, we got on a call and, I told her that I'd love to do this. And, I'd love to get involved with the work she was doing. And she asked me that, are you a certified consultant by the Proctor Gallagher Institute? Because you have to be a certified consultant to do this work. And I said, no, because I told her I don't have the money and I'm working towards, getting the money somehow. And I'd love to become a Proctor Gallagher consultant because that's my dream. And she's like, all right, let's get on a call later, after a week. Please let me know how you'd like to bring this information out to people in your country and in your continent. So, during that week, I brainstormed with myself and I came up with ideas, how to take this out to the wider community. And after a week, we got on a call and, she asked me that, how's your week been? What ideas have you come up with? And I told her that, these are the things I'd like to do. I'd come up with a few ideas. And, she told me, she's like, I would like to let you know that Proctor Gallagher Institute has decided to award you the consulting program free of charge. They have decided to grant this to you. And I couldn't believe my ears. I couldn't believe that this was becoming a reality in my life. I was so happy. I was so excited. And, she actually told me, she's like, I wanted to see your reaction to see how you feel about this, how, you're going to, talk about it, how you're going to react to it. And I could not believe that my dream came true. So ladies and gentlemen, do you see how my transformation just happened in one or two conversations? But how did that happen? This practice costs thousands of dollars, and there are consultants globally who are not able to repay the institution for a very long time. But I worked on myself to such an extent that I could attract it to myself. I didn't have to spend a dime to invest in this consulting program because the universe responded to all my efforts because I got myself on the right frequency, on the right vibration. So ladies and gentlemen, this is my message for you today, that, don't let your fears get in your way. Don't let your paradigm let you back off from whatever it is you're trying to do. Whatever change that you need to make, whatever changes that you need to make in your life, work towards them. Do not stop. Make an effort to do something different so that you can get different results. Because can you imagine how dumbfounded I was when they awarded it to me? I never thought I would just be given this practice. That never happens. It never happens. So who would have thought that I would be that person to get it? So this is another idea I want to run by you, that do not get confused and involved in the how something will happen. When you leave the how to the universe, but you work on yourself, things happen for you inside out. This is the way the universe works, and you can achieve and get whatever it is that you want. It doesn't matter what it is, because the universe simply responds to your vibrations. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, what it is that you want. For the universe, a shilling or a dollar or a million is all the same. It's you who's putting a very big value to it. It's all the same. So can you see how my consulting practice came to me? It's not that I didn't take any action. I followed all the techniques, and I did all the mindset work that I had to do. And then when things started aligning, now this is what I keep saying when I talk about decision making. You have to make a decision. When you make a decision and you work on yourself, all the people, resources, and circumstances start putting themselves in place to serve you. And that's exactly what happened to me. So when you get an inspired thought, an inspired idea, after you start working on yourself, take that action and things will just happen for you. So I got this practice so effortlessly. It just happened. Isn't that brilliant? So if I could do it, so can you, right? So that is the power of decision making, ladies and gentlemen. You have to work on yourself and become a decision maker. So my purpose of sharing this story is to let you know that if you have a dream you have been wanting to live, but you have been stuck in the how, you don't have to feel stuck anymore. There are systems that can take you through the step-by-step process of how to do whatever it is that you want to do. And a very big part of this is decision making, right? So you can get in touch with me, if you want to learn how to go about this. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. So these are my contacts, ladies and gentlemen. You can get in touch with me. Don't be that person, who's sitting on the sidelines. I hope you can see the screen. So that's my website. That's my WhatsApp number. You can get in touch with me directly. I'm present on Facebook and YouTube. Both my handles are called Thinking to Results with Shalini Gadia, and my Instagram handle is Shalini_GD. You have the ability to attract what it is that you want. The question that I always like to ask is that, do you want to be that person when you're sitting on your rocking chair, when you're 70, 80, and you look back to your life and you say, I wish I had done this. If I had done this, it could have impacted so many people. It could have brought so many benefits to people. I wish I had done it. I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. Do you want to be that person? Do you want to be that person who doesn't do things differently, who just goes through life, the way it's happening to you? Make life happen for you, not to you. You can create your life. You can be in charge and bring to you the circumstances that you want. But guess what? You have to make that decision to do the work from inside and make those changes. This world works inside out. Don't wait for circumstances to change themselves. They will never work in your favor, because when you think from your circumstances, your thought patterns are always going to remain the same. You need to be that person who thinks inside out and who drives your life inside out. That is exactly how it works. And I'm a living example of that. So for those of you who want to make serious changes in your life, who don't want to live with regrets, who want to do something different to get different results, get in touch with me. Let's have a conversation, because I have a step-by-step process that can help you, achieve whatever it is that you want. Be it something big, be it what it is that you really want to do in your life, be it change of profession, be it change of career, be it something material that you want to gain. For instance, if you are somebody who wants to, achieve something very big, or simply if you are already doing what it is that you want, but you are suffering from a lack of work-life balance, you're feeling frustrated, you feel like there's too much on your plate, I can help you with all that, because it's simply a shift of your mindset. When you learn how to take control of your paradigm, don't let your paradigm control you. You control your paradigm and see how your life starts transforming. And that's exactly what I did. And today I am doing what I absolutely love. I am living a life of joy, fulfillment, and purpose. I absolutely love it because I can help people do what they want, live the life they want. And that was absolutely my idea behind becoming a Proctor Gallagher consultant. This material is so powerful. It has the power to transform your life entirely. So get in touch with me. Please don't hesitate. I would be humbled to be a part of your journey. I would be happy if you chose me to help you to be a part of your journey. All right. So thank you for attending. And I will be now taking questions for those who are on the Zoom call here. Thank you so much.